continent where democratic processes largely are now a routine, elections have become a regular political ritual in the last 2 decades, and polls are often free but not seen to be fair, peaceful and credible. And these are interesting times, particularly here in Nigeria, ahead of the general elections in 2019, where key moments have grown into strong movements, inspiring the need for political realignments and the births of fresh coalitions. Well, joining me now to dig deep on Africa this week is Sylvester Odion, an associate professor of the Department of Political Science. That's at the Lagos State University. He joins us via phone. Thanks a lot, Doctor, for joining us at this time on TVC News.
Thank you.
All right, let's begin the discussion now this week with the interesting perspectives now, circulating across the country, especially the option of a third force. Now, I've seen the proponents of this force now, largely in the person of former President Olusegun Obasanjo. What do you make of the emergence of this third force option in Nigeria at this time?
Well, I think that all processes leading to general elections, not just in Nigeria, globally and in Africa, people have had to come together in coalitions to seek equal-bent governance. But I think that what is interesting about Nigeria's case is that despite the fact that we have so many political parties in the country, the effects of voting in the country, especially the bloodletting that is going on across the country, and the inability or the incapacitation of the government to respond robustly to these questions have raised doubt about the capacity of the government to continue to govern the country. And of course, as you know, that was the basis of the letter that Obasanjo wrote to the incumbent president, Muhammadu Buhari, which of course, struck a chord with many Nigerians in terms of how we view the issues of voting in the country. And so, talking about a coalition, it becomes very important because unless we want to deceive ourselves, Nigeria all along has been living a lie. And it is at this moment treading precariously towards the brink. And so you need a coalition of nation-building elites to rescue the country and ensure stability and unity of the country and steer it towards social progress. And the Coalition for Nigeria movement, which Obasanjo floated, is not the first. Don't forget that you have the National Intervention Movement, right, which people like Olisa Akpakova, Femi Falana, Donald Duke, all active participants. What all of these point to is that Nigeria has realized at this point that there is need to have a coalition if we must effect a change, of the ethnic regime in the country.
You've raised many issues now in your initial response. Let's take it from the first now, the number of political parties, and perhaps link it with the emergence of this coalition, the Coalition for Nigeria movement, and of course the NIM, the intervention movement. Now, these two stress that they are not political parties as such, and you've also alluded to the fact that we have at least 68 political parties in Nigeria. In the short race now, if I could use that term now, to 2019, however popular this movement may turn out to be, what will be the level of their, or what will be the extent of their relevance to the political system without necessarily being a political party?
Well, what I can tell you is that in most of the transitions that have taken place all over the continent, particularly in terms of unseating incumbent government who are either lame duck or who are authoritarian, it has taken coalition, both of the civil society and the extant political parties, to bring about change. And now what I can tell you is that you have 68 political parties in Nigeria, and two of them appear to be dominant at the moment, the PDP and the APC. Of course, people cannot differentiate between the two parties because elements of these parties have moved, across the two parties over time. And so, in terms of social capital, integrity as a social capital for them, they don't have it. But what I think probably will happen is that, as Nigerian history illustrates very well, is that when Nigerians are faced with, what I would call a daunting challenge, whether in form of military dictatorship or civil dictatorship, they have a way of banding together. And if the NIM and the Coalition for Nigeria movement come together, whether they join force with a new political party or other parties, they have the capacity to unseat the incumbent. That cannot be taken away. We have seen it dramatized all over the continent. In Senegal, for instance, the party socialist hegemony was only disbanded by the movement for change called SOPI. We brought Abdoulaye Wade to power around 2000. And when Abdoulaye Wade was becoming a seat-tight leader, he took similar coalition to bring Macky Sall to power in Senegal. In Benin Republic, when Kérékou was removed, it was a coalition of civil society that led to the convocation of a sovereign national conference in 1989 in Benin Republic. And Kérékou was history. Although, it does not always work, on a straight line in many other countries, as in Togo. But what I can tell you in the case of Nigeria, once Nigerians band together, the incumbent regime, as far as I'm concerned, is gone.
An option that has even been proposed now is, in addition to what you have also proposed, that perhaps these two existing coalitions come together. What if the parties already existent, the two main parties, and of course the 60-something, nearing 70 political parties, shouldn't the argument also be strengthening these existing options to the ruling party rather than, bringing in this coalition? How would you assess that alternative?
But you know very well that the 68 parties we have currently, let me say that they are not even enough for the country. Because when people talk about the number of parties in Nigeria, they forget that at the point of the military coup d'etat in 1966, Nigeria had about 81 political associations in this country, in the Fourth Republic. And today we are talking about 68 political parties as if there are too many. But what I can tell you is that having, worked as a general secretary of the democracy movement in the country in the 1990s under the military dictatorship, bringing forces together, building coalition is not just a thing you restrict to political parties alone. These parties that, as we know them, many of them don't have tremendous social base. And therefore, when you have new coalitions, whether they are registered or not, binding together, and of course, eventually joining force or using one of the existing political parties as a basis to contest for political power, and I think that it is surely going to work.
All right. Of course, we can't ignore the strides of the Not Too Young to Run campaign last year now. And now seeing how, as this year has brought up a host of surprises somehow, how do you, foresee now the emergence of and the progress of the campaign? Of course, the National Assembly has since, spoken out on the issue. It's now left to the State Houses of Assembly on the Not Too Young to Run campaign. But where do you see this course now in the face of this fresh developments?
The question about who run for an office in Nigeria, in terms of age and all of that, I don't think that those are the real issues with our country. The real issue with our country is having an articulated worldview, which of course embraces how we intend to run our country along a developmental trajectory, as well as, of course, playing our role within the continent. Those are the issues. It's not essentially about confining people within age brackets. Of course, if the coalitions that are built now, that are coming up, are able to, of course, register, it does not mean that they cannot win elections. Elsewhere, independents have won elections. We just saw that demonstrated in Benin Republic when an unknown businessman came in and took power in Benin Republic. So in Nigeria, I think it is doable, particularly when Nigerians are dissatisfied and, of course, lost faith within a particular administration.
All right, we've seen the achievements of the current administration of President Buhari. And of course, now the APC has been speaking out loudly on this in reacting to the emergence of the third force now, talking about the strides in agriculture, in railway, terrorism, and the likes. How would you, weigh in on the arguments, in the face of it? Eventually, to be left to the voter to decide whether he joins a third force or not.
Well, I think the point to make is that an incumbent party is bound, duty bound to defend its own policies. But as far as I can say, the fight against insurgencies in the Northeast, for me, is just a propaganda thing. Because the current incumbent government in Nigeria supported the Boko Haram when Jonathan, the military leadership under Jonathan, was trying to, beat the Boko Haram to where they belong. We saw that, now they are taking credit that they are fighting they are defeating Boko Haram. We've seen, the regime came out severally in the past to say they have defeated Boko Haram. And we have also seen the resurgence of Boko Haram, over time. So that, of course, has become an issue, a point of issue in trying to, of course, underline what they have achieved. When you talk about the economy, what have they contributed to the economy? Have they been able to diversify the economy? No. Everybody is talking about Nigeria coming out of recession, as if it was by productive mix, of the productive forces in the country that we have come out of recession. The so-called coming out of recession is what it was. Oil price has risen, by shell accidents, and so the price of barrel has risen to between 65 and 70 now. So everybody is saying we are out of recession, and there's a counting that we are doing it great.
All right. Sylvester Odion, Associate Professor of the Department of Political Science from the Lagos State University. Thank you so much for your analysis with us on TVC News.